Joran van der Sloot, a name that likely rings a bell for many people. He gained infamy for his involvement in the disappearance of American teenager Natalee Holloway in Aruba back in 2005, and the brutal murder of Peruvian woman Stephany Flores in 2010. Van der Sloot is a Dutch national who has lived in several countries and is known for his manipulative behavior and criminal activities. In this video, I'm going to share some truly bizarre facts about this ruthless killer. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates about this case in the future. Joran van der Sloot was born in 1987 in the Dutch city of Arnhem. He grew up with two younger brothers. His father, Paulus van der Sloot, was a lawyer, while his mother, Anita van der Sloot-Hugen, worked as an art teacher. In 1990, the family moved to Aruba, where Joran became an honor student at the International School of Aruba. He was athletic, with a talent for both football and tennis. On the outside, Joran appeared to be a perfectly normal, well-mannered young man, but appearances can be deceiving. After a breakup at the age of 16, Joran began seeking comfort in Aruba's nightlife scene. According to his mother, Joran struggled with compulsive lying. He would often sneak out of the house late at night to visit casinos. In 2005, Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old high school graduate from Alabama, traveled to Aruba with her classmates to celebrate their graduation. On the night of May 30th, Natalee was last seen at a bar in Orangestad, partying with her friends. Later that evening, she got into a car with Joran van der Sloot and two of his friends. The next morning, Natalee was reported missing by her roommate. Police launched an immediate search, but no trace of Natalee could be found. Joran van der Sloot claimed he had dropped her off at her hotel and hadn't seen her since. But authorities didn't buy his story, and he quickly became the prime suspect in her disappearance. In the days and weeks that followed, the police conducted several searches and interrogated both Joran and his friends. Yet no concrete evidence was found to press charges. Joran maintained his innocence and was eventually released. The case sparked international media attention and fierce controversy over how the Aruban authorities handled the investigation. Multiple search efforts were launched, and even rewards were offered for information leading to Natalee's whereabouts. But despite all efforts, Natalee was never found, and her disappearance remains unsolved to this day. In 2010, Joran van der Sloot once again made headlines, this time for something even darker. He was arrested in Peru for the brutal murder of 21-year-old Stephany Flores. While he was never officially charged in the Holloway case, Joran van der Sloot remains, to this day, the primary suspect in one of the most haunting missing persons cases of the 21st century. Since the disappearance of Natalee Holloway in 2005 and the immediate focus on Joran van der Sloot as the main suspect, the Dutchman has become the subject of intense media scrutiny and widespread public interest. From the very beginning, international news outlets, such as CNN and Fox News, picked up the story and turned it into a global media sensation. The case captured not only the attention of the United States, but also audiences in the Netherlands and Aruba. Then, in 2008, a major development reignited public interest. Dutch crime reporter Peter R. de Vries announced he had uncovered new evidence in the Holloway case. In a 2-hour special broadcast, Peter revealed secretly recorded footage in which Joran appeared to confess his involvement in Natalee's disappearance. On tape, Joran claimed that Natalee had suddenly fallen unconscious while they were on the beach, and that her body was later dumped into the ocean. Following the broadcast, Joran was questioned in Rotterdam by Aruban investigators. The case was briefly reopened, breathing new life into a cold investigation. But despite the apparent confession, the Aruban judge ruled that the statements were not legally sufficient to warrant a new arrest. And just like that, Joran slipped through the hands of justice once more. In 2010, Stephany Flores, a young Peruvian woman, was brutally murdered in a hotel room in Lima. The prime suspect? None other than Joran van der Sloot, who happened to be in Peru at the time to participate in the World Cup of Poker. Joran met Stephany at a casino in Lima. The two left together and returned to his hotel room. But later that night, Stephany was found dead, her body showing clear signs of violence. She had been beaten and strangled with her own scarf. After the murder, Joran attempted to flee across the border into Chile, But his escape was short-lived. He was quickly tracked down, arrested, and extradited back to Peru. Soon after his arrest, Joran confessed to killing Stephany. He claimed that an argument had erupted when Stephany discovered information on his laptop about his connection to the Natalee Holloway case in Aruba, 5 years earlier. Since then, Joran has confessed to the murder multiple times, each time changing the details of what supposedly happened in that hotel room. One thing, however, has remained disturbingly consistent: the cold-blooded violence that ended Stephany's life. In January 2012, Joran van der Sloot was sentenced to 28 years in prison for the murder of Stephany Flores in Peru. The trial lasted only 2 days. In a courtroom in Lima, the judge delivered the verdict after hearing testimony from both the prosecution and the defense. The evidence against van der Sloot was found to be overwhelmingly convincing. The court declared him guilty of homicide, a verdict that brought a deep sense of relief to the Flores family and to Peruvian authorities, who had followed the case with intense scrutiny. The conviction also reignited international interest, largely because of Joran's prior connection to the Natalee Holloway case. For many, this was the long-awaited moment where justice finally caught up with him, at least in one case. Today, van der Sloot is serving his sentence in Chalapalca prison, one of the most notorious and remote prisons in Peru. Isolated high in the Andes, it's known for its harsh conditions and unforgiving climate. Since his conviction, Joran has repeatedly attempted to secure early release by applying for clemency, but every single request has been denied. Since his 2012 conviction for the murder of Stephany Flores, Joran van der Sloot has been incarcerated in Chalapalca prison, one of Peru's harshest and most remote correctional facilities. Life behind bars has been anything but easy. Isolated high in the Andes Mountains, Chalapalca is infamous for its brutal conditions and unforgiving climate. Van der Sloot shares a cramped cell with several other inmates, leaving him with no personal space and forcing him to navigate the daily struggles of life behind bars. Access to the outside world is extremely limited. He's allowed only a few brief calls or visits from family and friends each week, if that. Prisoners have access to running water for only a few hours each day. Even basic hygiene becomes a daily battle, as inmates often compete for a spot in the line just to take a shower. The food is notoriously poor in quality, and medical care is scarce, leaving many to suffer in silence. Yet even from inside prison walls, Joran van der Sloot remains a figure of public fascination. The media continues to follow his every move. He has, on occasion, given interviews to journalists, seeming to crave the spotlight even in confinement. Joran van der Sloot met Lady Figueroa 3 years after his incarceration, while she was working inside the prison. In 2013, the unlikely couple decided to get married. But organizing a wedding from behind bars wasn't easy. There were legal hurdles, stacks of paperwork, and bureaucratic red tape. Eventually, both the prison authorities and the local municipality gave their approval, and in 2014, the wedding took place. At the time, van der Sloot was being held at Piedras Gordas prison. Twice a week, Lady was allowed to visit. During those visits, the couple had unsupervised conjugal access, and it was during one of those visits that Lady became pregnant. She later stated that, due to her religious beliefs, abortion was never an option. Their daughter was born and named Dushi Trudy, Dushi meaning sweet in Papiamento, and Trudy in honor of Joran's grandmother. Despite the marriage and the birth of their child, Joran received no legal benefits. It did not shorten his sentence, nor did it give him any privileges within the prison system. However, some have speculated there may have been another motive behind the marriage. By marrying a Peruvian citizen and fathering a child, Joran could potentially apply for Peruvian nationality, a legal maneuver that might help him avoid extradition to the United States once his prison term in Peru ends. Whether motivated by love or legal strategy, the marriage of Joran van der Sloot remains one of the more bizarre and controversial chapters in the already twisted saga of his life. In January 2023, shocking new headlines once again brought Joran van der Sloot into the spotlight. It was revealed that he had been sentenced to an additional 18 years in prison, this time for drug trafficking behind bars. According to reports, Sloot had managed to smuggle large quantities of drugs into the prison where he was serving his sentence. The narcotics were allegedly smuggled in through sugar beets with the help of a relative of a fellow inmate. Once inside, he sold the drugs to other prisoners and even shipped cocaine abroad using disguised mail packages. At the time, Sloot was already serving a 28-year sentence for the 2010 murder of Stephany Flores. But Peruvian law caps total prison time at 35 years, meaning he would remain behind bars until 2045. However, in June 2023, a major development occurred. Joran Sloot was extradited to the United States. He and his legal team made several last-ditch attempts to block the extradition, but ultimately, all efforts failed. Now, even as he faces the harshest conditions in Peru, Sloot must answer for his crimes in the U.S., particularly for his alleged role in extorting the family of Natalee Holloway, the American teen whose disappearance in 2005 first brought his name into infamy. After Joran Sloot struck his deal with U.S. authorities in the summer of 2023, the intense media frenzy surrounding his life and crimes slowly began to fade. The world had followed his every move: his involvement in the disappearance of Natalee Holloway, the brutal murder of Stephany Flores, and his latest criminal actions behind bars. But even as the public's attention shifts, the dark shadow of his past remains ever present. The families of his victims still seek justice, and the haunting question of what truly happened to Natalee Holloway continues to linger. Joran Sloot's story, for all its twists and turns, is far from over. His future now lies in the hands of U.S. authorities as he faces new charges and a life that has been shaped by violence, manipulation, and an unrelenting pursuit of justice. Will he finally be held accountable for the full extent of his actions? As the chapters of his story unfold, one thing is certain: the legacy of his crimes will never be forgotten. Do you think we'll ever get the full truth about the disappearance of Natalee Holloway? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of true crime. Thanks for watching.